All right, go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. Like VP said, my name is Savannah. I am based here in Los Angeles, California. I actually live up in the Valley. I live in Van Nuys and I work at Providence St. Joseph in Burbank. So for all of you guys who are local, Providence is a big company here. I help oversee their cath lab, GI lab, special procedures, their PIC team and non-invasive cardiology over there. So that's what I do full time, Monday through Friday. And I got into real estate investing the beginning of last year. Like VP said, I'm going to be presenting on my second multifamily syndication deal. I've really just prepared I'm going to share my investor presentation that I shared when I was initially proposing this opportunity to investors to invest in. And I'm not going to present all of it because I really want to do it from the standpoint of, I think there's maybe a lot of aspiring syndicators in here, people who are maybe looking to get started in it. So I'm going to kind of maybe try and cater it to people who are wanting to kind of know about some of the difficult things that I encountered while raising money and just kind of going through the process of this deal. So I'm going to share my screen. And then, so yes, VP is a GP in this deal, and he's going to present more the asset management side and like our business plan in terms of what we're doing with the building and kind of some hiccups that we encountered with that and how we smoothed them over. So I'm going to share here. And then here. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? We're good?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. I forgot everyone's on mute. Okay. So this is Clearwater Manor Apartments. It's a 24 unit that was up in Oregon. So this was our second deal in Oregon and really kind of how that came about. I'm here in Los Angeles, California. My husband and I own a couple single family homes over in Atlanta, Georgia. And we were looking up at the Oregon market because I have family there. So we have boots on the ground and we know the market. So it was easy for us to get practice underwriting and looking at the numbers and different things to consider when you're doing the underwriting and the acquisition piece of different projects. And so we were really looking up in that market to kind of just practice running numbers. And we created a great relationship with a broker. We're looking at deals that had really great numbers. And so kind of the law of the first deal, if you haven't heard of that, once you kind of already have a team in place, it makes it a little bit easier to do subsequent deals. And so that was very true. This deal came in through that same broker that we already had relationships with. And that was really because he saw us close so quickly and efficiently on our first deal, a 12 unit up in the area, that he wanted to keep sending us deals. So that's kind of how we found the property. This is my husband and I. So this is the market overview. So a few different reasons of why we love this market. Myrtle Creek, which is where this property is a suburb of Roseburg, Oregon. It's a population of around 100,000 people, very low vacancy rate and steady population growth. So it's a growing market that has good variation in employment and economy in terms of education, healthcare, recreation. And then here's a lot of the outdoors and activity life that a lot of people go there for, especially in the summertime, even actually in the wintertime where they have all their skiing and that sort of stuff. But here are some of the things that we liked in terms of the market. And again, showing this graph is super important when we're looking at deals, is looking at the variation in employment by occupations and in industries. And we get all this information from government websites that update it based on the census. And as you can see, what we really like about these visuals is the variety and not one specific occupation or industry that's monopolizing the market. There's a really good variation. So especially during COVID, it wasn't hit extremely hard as opposed to some of the markets that really just have one sole employment dominating it. So I'm going to dive into a little bit more about the building. It was a good unit mix, which we loved about it. So there's 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. So you can see the unit mix over here, really good variation. And having 3 bedroom units is awesome because not a lot of buildings have those and they're good for families. And so having a building with good variation is really great. Also over here, the amenities that it has. So washer dryer connections in the 3-bedroom, 1-bath units. There's an on-site laundry center, extra storage available for each of the units. As you can see out here, they all have their own individual storage units. So this just means like not a lot of stuff was like piling up on their doorsteps. They do have places to store things, and very spacious floor plans. So here's just some more pictures of the property. You could tell it's kind of a Class C neighborhood and a Class C building. Some of the units have been upgraded, but we do plan to renovate a few more as they turn over. But overall, the inside of the units were very clean and well maintained by the tenants there. There was one of them that was kind of an issue, but the majority of them had good pride of ownership. So our business plan strategy really was to increase rents to market level. So they're currently 16% below market. So this is something that we plan to increase year after year to really just drive that net operating income. And we're able to do that, increase the rents with very low renovations to the unit. So very cosmetic, just like paint, carpet, resurfacing some of the counters, not really doing any major renovations to the units in order to increase rents. They're just below market value. Also going into the reduced expenses, which VP will talk a little bit more about in terms of the asset management, but that was a big proponent of this deal in terms of value add opportunity, is the ability to reduce a lot of the expenses. And property management really went into that as well in terms of kind of what we were going to be able to do by switching out the property management team that was in place. So currently when we took it over, there was a tenant that was living in the building that was managing it, and it was just very poorly managed. He was not screening tenants before he was renting out. There was problems with some of the tenants. Some of them throughout COVID weren't paying rent. So there were a few delinquencies in the building. That was really an issue. So we got it closer to the end of the year. The delinquencies spiked at around July, August 2020. I think at one point during the highest, there was maybe 10 people out of the 24 that didn't pay rent one month. But then it slowly started recuperating and people were catching up on their rent. So by the time that we took it over in the fall, winter months, all of them were paying rent except like 2 of them. Okay. So a little bit more into the details of, the returns of what we were looking at for our investors. So 24 units, $1.9 million purchase price. We were raising 600. We actually ended up raising 675,000 because there was a lot of deferred CapEx items in the building. So when we went to go inspect it, when we went to do our due diligence, we had our team there. So Lupe and myself, VP was there. We had a contractor, we had the existing property management company, and then also the new property management company that we were going to be implementing. And it's super important to have all these people there while you're doing the walkthrough in the due diligence phase, because first off, having more people there creates opportunities that at least one person's going to catch something that someone else didn't. But having your new property management team there to see the building, see how the units are taken care of, walk inside. We walked inside every single one of the units just to get an idea of kind of the tenant base there. It's a really good experience for the new oncoming property management team to kind of see and get an idea of what items they're thinking are going to be a problem or anything that's jumping out to them, because they have like all the experience that we don't have. We're not property managers. So we're really relying on their eyes to go into this building and see kind of what they anticipate potential problems to be, or things that they're concerned about and taking on the property. So super important to have the new property management team there while you're going to do your due diligence. And also it was super beneficial to have the existing property management team. Obviously he had to unlock every door for us, but we could see kind of his relationship with the tenants and kind of what his take on and just certain things that he would say as we walked into different units, that he wasn't really doing a good job in screening some of these tenants. And so we really have this opportunity to take over this building and really kind of weed out and transition out all those bad tenants and do proper screening on new tenants, have them come in, increase the rents, just create an overall better community there in the apartment complex by implementing that proper property management team. So investment period, 5 years, and then the I'll have the projected returns more at the end as well that we can look at. They're not populating here on this slide. So this again just kind of breaks down our acquisition summary so we can see it. And this is something that we share with all our investors when we're doing our investor presentation, because we want them to see everything that we're looking at when we're taking on the building. So we show them from an acquisition standpoint what the purchase price is, what loan terms we're getting. So we got a 30-year loan, 3.8%. So the down payment's $475,000. We got in at a 25% down. And also, so you can see the returns here, 5.4 cash on cash, 17% AAR, 14% IRR, and we split it 80-20%. And also, this is our opportunity when we present this to investors, is to show them the fees that we take as general partners on the deal. So as you can see, a really low acquisition fee of 0.8% and then a low asset management fee of 1%. So we just like to be really upfront with all the fees that we're taking and just really how we're splitting the deal and what the numbers look like. And then over here, just diving into a little bit more of our business strategy and what we specifically are doing with this building. So you can see here the rent escalator, it was 16% below market. So we're going to be able to increase it 5% every year. And these are numbers that we vet out with our property management team who's going to be taking it over, and they are able to give insight based on what they're seeing in their buildings in the area and just what they think is realistic. Also because we have buildings in Oregon and have seen what we're able to increase rents year after year, we're able to have our background and knowledge and insight when we're underwriting these deals. So underwriting very conservatively at rental increases at 5% every year. And then what we're really looking at here is the vacancy. So what we did is we combined the vacancy with the concessions and the loss to lease because there was still a bit of delinquency due to COVID. But as we were taking over the building, we negotiated with the seller and put it into our contract that we were not going to be accountable or for collecting all of that bad debt that was lost to a lot of the delinquencies. So we weren't going to be recouping that from our tenants moving forward once we took over the building. So what we did in our underwriting is we just totaled kind of the delinquencies with the existing vacancy rate and then decreased it back to its normal standard market rate of 5%. And that's at year 2. So we have a full year to really kind of stabilize it, make sure everything's okay with the delinquency. And even when we were taking it over, it's super important for us to start researching different grants that the state was allowing or different moratoriums that were in place due to COVID-19 and just kind of what to expect as a landlord taking over a new building in the area where tenants, a few tenants weren't paying rent. So very important to understand those laws, talk to your property managers about their understanding of those laws and different government regulations, and then what our business plan taking those into consideration. So starting back in March 2021, the state of Oregon was making whole up to 80% for landlords of uncollected rent. So and that's a grant placed in by the state indefinitely at this point. They haven't had a cutoff date for that one. So we were making ourselves just very aware of different things like that going on so that we could better calculate these numbers in a kind of unprecedented time. So this is kind of how we got those numbers here. The other income is the laundry. And then the biggest things down here that we wanted to point out to our investors is the expenses. So the water was out of control in the building. It's something that we noticed right away as a value add opportunity because because we own buildings in the area, we were able to compare that to our existing buildings and see that that was very, very high for a 24 unit building. And kind of talking to our property management team and vetting those numbers, they were in agreement that it was high. And it wasn't until we did our due diligence of the building and we were actually walking every single one of the units that we noticed that there were multiple units where the faucets were just leaking like a constant drip, or there was multiple units that we walked into that the shower heads were just constantly leaking. And for us, that's a huge value add opportunity. So I know it can be hard when you're walking into a building that may have been mismanaged, or there's a lot of pain points in terms of everything seems like it's leaking, or just tenants not paying rent. But for us, these are huge opportunities to add value to the building. And it just goes to show that with the right business strategy and with the right asset management plan and a good property management team, you can go into these buildings and really add a lot of value by increasing the income, decreasing the expenses, and then you're getting great returns for yourself and your investors. So we decreased it very conservatively over these years. And even now, so we've owned the building a few months now, and we're already hitting year 2 targets for the water with what we're at now. And so we've already had a plumber go out, and they're in the process of switching out all the toilets as well, and all the leaking plumbing. And the great thing about Oregon, which just goes to show that you really need to investigate your market and have great understanding of different opportunities that are available in your market. So Oregon offers huge incentives for landlords who implement energy efficient fixtures and energy conservation programs. Like, it's a very green state, and they have this huge government funded program called Energy Trust. And if you as a landlord are doing things in your building, implementing solar and implementing energy efficient fixtures, in one of our other buildings, we just installed new installation because it was completely used and worn tore, and we installed like energy efficient installation, and the state literally paid for all of it for us. They sent us a $16,000 check for it. So there's just amazing opportunities in Oregon to take advantage of different programs like this. And this is something our property management team is aware of, and we make sure that they have experience working with Energy Trust, and then also contractors. So contractors usually have to submit a specific kind of documentation of what they're actually implementing in the building. And then they help kind of submit those forms over to Energy Trust, and it meets the criteria for them. And then that's kind of how you get the reimbursement. So it's important to work also with a contracting team that is knowledgeable and understanding of kind of the different programs that the state has. This is just a sales comp that we always try and show our investors kind of just what the market looks like in terms of our exit strategy, because that's usually a big concern for our investors is they want kind of some sort of assurance that we're going to be able to sell the building at what we're predicting it at. And with that, we just look at different cap rates. We vet those out with our brokers who have been working in the area for years and years, property management team. So we're constantly vetting out when we do our underwriting with our team as a whole to make sure that we're not missing anything, and that we can just double check our numbers to make sure that they are written conservatively. So this is a little bit more of the numbers we do for our investors. We try to show them what their returns would look like if they were to invest $50,000 and $100,000. And this is really kind of one of the biggest visuals that they look at in our deals because it shows them exactly how much money they can expect on a year-to-year basis. So we really just point out that, so up here at the top for the $50,000 investment, we point out the cash flow that they can expect year after year. So as you can see on the first year, it's low cash flow. And that's honestly just kind of comes with a strong value add business strategy that for the first year, if it was a very poorly managed building, it takes a little while to stabilize the building and really start generating some of that missed income that the previous seller has been missing. So you can see 1.5%, that's pretty low, but the expenses were just out of control. And so by going in there at the year, then you can see and stabilizing those expenses, driving up the revenue, they do increase year to year. It's at about 8% when we go to sell. And our goal is to hit these targets for our investors, 17% AAR and IRR. And again, these are very conservatively, I can say even like after owning it for a few months, these returns have increased in that short amount of time, just because we underwrite things so conservatively. Those were just some of the frequently asked questions. So I'll have VP jump in and he can share kind of our asset management strategies, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Thank you, Savannah. That was great. I'm going to share my screen now. Share. I want to introduce myself a little bit. So I am based in Los Angeles. I'm a tech executive in a Santa Monica AI company. And I have about $4 million assets under management. And I have been doing real estate for 12 years. But to be fair, most of it is single family. So this was the first time I got into multifamily deal. So for asset management, as Savannah said, right, water bill reduction is our number one thing. And there was something interesting that we saw while underwriting, is that the sewer bill was actually higher than even water bill. And when Lupe investigated, he found out that it's actually because of toilets. So if we replace the toilets, we will be able to significantly reduce sewer bill and water bill as well. Because so that's the first thing that we're going to tackle. It's relatively easy to do as well. So actually, the order has been placed for toilets, and so we're going to get a toilet at about $89 per piece, and we are replacing the toilet in about. We're replacing 16 toilets, so that's work is underway. I think it'll get done in approximately in a next month or so, or even before that, actually. And while that person is going there to install toilets, they are also going to look at other fixtures that are leaking, as Savannah said, and they will replace those fixtures as well. So that should also have a little bit of benefit. Immediately, So water and sewer bill reduction is the number one priority for us, and we're working on it. Then the next one is obviously roof. Hold on, I'm jumping for some reason. Let me see. Yeah. The next one is roof. So this has about almost 4 buildings. Like you can see, like 3 different major buildings, and then there's a small office. So it's a very, very large roof, and we got multiple contracts, and we were able to get like a very reasonable quote at the end of it within our budget, like maybe even like 20,000 less than our budget. And so the contract has been finalized, and within next month or so, definitely next couple of months, we plan to replace the roof. So that process is also underway. So contract is almost there. We have finalized the vendor for replacing the roof. Actually, there was so one interesting thing about this deal is there were a lot of lessons learned, right? Every deal is going to teach you something new. And what we want to talk about is what were the lessons that were learned. I think the first lesson to understand is unexpected issues will come, right? It's not like everything is go as per your plan. We had 2 unexpected issues. One was about the roof. Roof is a major expense. Like this roof is going to cost like somewhere around like $80,000-$90,000, right? So when that kind of expense suddenly shows up, you have to go back to the drawing board and see if this is going to work or not. And thankfully, the deal was really great, and it was absolutely going to work. And the seller also gave us some credit as a result of that. So because of that, the deal was, we made the deal work essentially. So that was one of the issues. Another issue that Savannah mentioned earlier was that there was a one unit that was trashed completely. Like I didn't want to show your photos here, but this is our contractor said that this is the worst unit he has seen in a recent time inspection. So it was really trashed. This person was not probably in right mental state. They had lost their job. Uh, Thankfully, what happened is before we took over the building, they were able to fix that unit and make it clean, and they were able to put that unit in an acceptable position. So that's one of the good things. So second biggest problem I guess we faced was we were trying to do this syndication under exemption 504. So everybody might have heard about 506B and 506C, but there is another exemption in SEC law regulations, in regulation D, called exemption 504. And the benefit of that exemption is that there's a less paperwork involved in doing that exemption, doing your syndication under that exemption. But the problem with that exemption is if your investors are in like 3 or 4 different states, then all those states' security laws, they're called blue sky laws, they get applied. And if one of the particular state's law is completely different from the federal law, then you have to accommodate that. And maybe Savannah can throw more. Savannah, I think you faced an issue with an investor, right? In New York or someone.
Yeah, definitely. So this was something that we did our first deal, our 12 unit with the same legal team, and they did a 504, and it was just an easy way to do it because we only had investors for that first deal in 2 states. And so we were moving forward with the same legal team, and they don't do 506B deals or 506B or 506C. And we could have done a 506B because not all of our investors were accredited. Although the majority of them were, we still wanted to be able to cater to a couple of like our friends who weren't accredited investors and who wanted to get in the deal. So that legal team wanted to do a 504. The issue was I had a nurse over in New York who wanted to invest. And because the New York laws are so strict in terms of investing in securities that our legal team said it was going to be, I think, an additional like $8,000 for her to be able to invest. And kind of running our numbers, just because of my relationship with that nurse, like we were going to potentially move forward on it. And the legal team kind of came back last minute and was like, yeah, we're not going to, she's not going to be able to invest. So since then we've moved to a new legal team for our new deal, but it was something that by the time we had learned about that in the process, we were so far into the legal process of the deal. Like we couldn't just easily switch lawyers at that point to be able to accommodate all our investors. So we ended up having to kind of write it out with the legal team, which is fine. They're great lawyers, but just kind of the work that they're willing and able to do wasn't really kind of what we had in mind. So it's not going to be a good fit moving forward, but it was an hurdle that we had to overcome because I had this investor investing $100,000. And so last minute, I'm scrambling now to raise an extra $100,000, which I've already put in so much work and time to raise this money. So it was a really defeating moment. I'm not going to lie, as a capital raiser in this deal. It was very, very frustrating. But like VP said, you really just got to move forward and learn from these mistakes and just kind of keep growing.
Yeah, and one of the problems in New York is that you have to actually file a paperwork to the state, and the state kind of approves that investment. So that's kind of tough. I mean, we don't know how much time the state will take to approve that investment, right? So this was really, not an option, essentially. Yeah, and that's the lesson that I guess I learned from that is that you need to do your own research. Do not just depend on professionals. Right. In this case, the lawyer said, oh, we should do 504. But I guess maybe we should have done our own research and concluded, told them in the before itself that no, don't want to do 504. We should be doing 506B. Right. So I think that's one of the lessons that we should know is we have to do our own research. Your CPA, your lawyer might tell you something, but you need to vet it, to make sure that that's what you exactly want. And another issue is that, some issues or other like COVID related issues are getting sorted out themselves. So economy is coming back, and a lot of the problems that we saw earlier, like people not paying rents, right? And all of those problems are getting sorted out, and the numbers are getting better and better every month. So that's a very welcome change, and it's only going to go up from here, because the economy is coming back very strongly. So just have faith, and your some problems get solved themselves, right? Um, yeah, and another biggest lesson learned was closing. We had a sort of a little bit of mess to cover with, because what happened is the seller sort of told us that they won't give us all the leases and all the information about all the deposits and all the essentially the paperwork for all the tenants before signing the deal. So I mean, before the deal gets closed. So when the deal got closed and we got all this information, it was the end of the month, and as a result, some people immediately, next day paid next month's rent, and they were not aware that we are the new owners, and that the rent needs to be paid to the new property management company. And because of that, the rents got paid to, some rents got paid to the older property management company, some rents got paid to the newer property management company. And then it became all mess that we had to so we couldn't inform everybody on time to, have them send their rents to us. And we're still auditing that process and making sure that every single person's rent and deposit is received, right? So I think we could have avoided this by making condition to the seller that they must give all this data, all these records, like 15 days before, like 2 or 3 weeks before us. And then we could have just saved a ton of work of auditing and accounting for this money. So that was another interesting lesson that we learned from this deal. Yeah, and I mean, that's pretty much about it. And I guess now if anyone has questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions.
One thing I wanted to touch on that I kind of meant to share in the presentation was the financing with this specific deal. And I think especially if there's a lot of aspiring syndicators out there who are maybe new or trying to struggle with the concept of getting financing for these deals. So for us, to get Fannie Freddie loans from the government agency debt, you have to have a lot of experience. You have to have like 2 to 3 years experience, or you have to have a sponsor. And so for us, we ended up going with a local credit union, and we used the same local credit union for the 12 unit that we did. Really good terms, as you can see from the deal, 3.8, 30-year. And so we wanted to stick with the same credit union and financing. So the issue with that is when it comes to syndications, credit unions have a federal guideline that over 51% ownership of the building have to sign on the loan. So if you're doing a syndication and you're splitting it 20-80 with your investors and you're signing on the loan as the 20%, you're not meeting that requirement. You need 50% to sign on the loan. So this allowed us to get strategic with kind of what we wanted to do with the deal in terms of bringing on partners. And I've just really submerged myself in different real estate communities. And I talked to a lot of people who are interested in multifamily syndications and looking to get started in themselves. And so I was connecting with people who I knew wanted to start doing syndications themselves, but who hadn't done their first deal. And so who may be interested in coming on as a GP in our deal by signing on the loan with us. And then that's also how we met the net worth liquidity requirements, because my husband and I do not meet the net worth liquidity requirements on our own. So this is kind of a way that we got creative with it. Is we reached out to these investors who we knew wanted to do this, and they invested passively in the deal, like 50,000 up to 100,000. They're investing in the deal. So they're receiving all the returns as a limited partner in the deal, but we're bringing them on as a GP by signing on the loan. They got a small percentage of the GP to do that. And now that's giving them the experience when they go to do subsequent deals. So if a lot of these investors were looking to do this down the road, and now when they get to go and talk to brokers and when they get to talk to new lenders, they can say, hey, I'm at a GP on a 24 unit deal. And they now have that credibility moving forward in future syndications. And that's, if you're in multifamily or even in real estate in general, it's hard to get brokers to take you seriously if you're new. And so this is a huge stepping point for our investors that we were able to provide this opportunity to. And it just goes to show, especially in syndications and real estate as a whole, like creating a team sport and synergistic relationships that are mutually beneficial is so important. And for us, we wouldn't have been able to get this deal done if we didn't have these LPs that we brought on as GPs that were willing to sign on the deal. And these LPs may have not been able to find that GP experience if they weren't able to come onto our deal. So as you can see, it's kind of a mutually beneficial relationship. Any other questions on kind of what we were looking for in the deal, how we found it, raising money? I'm definitely open to answer any questions about the deal.
Yeah, I have a quick question actually. Just about what you just mentioned about like the net worth requirements. What is I should probably know this, but like to meet does it have to be liquid for someone if someone wanted to do that? Or can it be in like rental property, like equity in rental property? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so you have to, so when you buy a building, like a multifamily deal, so say you're buying $1 million property and you're getting a loan out for 750,000, so you're doing a 25% down payment, you have to have the net worth liquidity of the loan amount, so 750,000. And this can be in IRA accounts, it can be in equity, different places that you can find it, just savings accounts, but it can be, this is difficult when you're a new investor coming on. And so that's why it's important to kind of leverage different relationships that you have.
Yeah.
But I think it's okay to be in real estate as well. It's equity that you own.
Yes.
It's equity. So it's not necessarily liquid cash.
It doesn't have to be a liquid cash. It can be equity in your real estate as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So actually, sorry, there's two requirements. Net worth is different, which includes real estate as well. But liquidity is liquid cash or something that is absolutely liquid, like stocks, something that can be liquidated pretty soon.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So there's two requirements here. Net worth, you can consider real estate. For liquidity, you cannot consider real estate.
Yes. Okay.
Savannah, what was the liquidity requirement on your deal?
So this one, the 24 units, so it was a 1.9 million. I forget what the loan was. It was over $1 million. So we brought on 4 investors as GPs on the deal to have them sign on the loan with us. So we were just tipping that point of having, like, I think it was exactly 51% of the money that was invested was signing on the loan as guarantor. And between the 5 of us, we were able to meet the net worth liquidity requirements, but it was around like a little over $1 million, maybe 1.5.
So
I think the credit union rules are different.
Is it typically that they want liquidity equivalent to their loan amount?
To the loan, yes, correct.
Right, but in case of credit unions, right, it's different. What they look for is 51% of equity has to be within general partners. They have to sign, sorry, not general partners, but they have to sign the loan, essentially. Mm-hmm. So I think that is their primary requirement. I'm not sure if they had a liquidity requirement, though, in this case. Did they require any particular amount of cash to be present with all these investors?
Yeah, in the loan amount, yes.
Oh, the loan amount? Okay.
Yeah.
But loan amount is usually net worth, not liquidity.
Yeah, he did both. Yeah, okay. And the whole loan process to bring someone on as a guarantor, it's so much paperwork that you have to submit. So that's something that we did have to prepare our investors for. I mean, they dive very deep into your financials to prove this. Curious how we found it. So we found it through a relationship with a broker. I kind of mentioned at the beginning, it was a broker, and we did this. So coming in new, we found this super young and hungry broker from Marcus and Millichap, and he was super motivated to get deals done. And we kind of hit a sweet spot with them of these like smaller deals. And because we were new investors when we first got started with him, he, unlike a lot of other brokers, never asked us for our experience, which was huge going in, because a lot of brokers, if they know you haven't done a deal, they might not take you as seriously, or they have a whole long list of investors that they're trying to find deals for. So you're kind of like at the bottom of the list. So it was really just kind of chance finding and we called maybe like 50 brokers, and that was in Atlanta and the Oregon market as well. Just phone call after phone call, making really specific requirements of what we were looking for. And that was very key in having those initial conversations with him. We were like, hey, we're looking for a 12 to 30 unit, $1 to $2 million value add in these submarkets. And because we were so specific on what we were looking at, I think the broker had an idea that that he took us seriously, that he knew when he was going to send us a deal that we would be able to jump on it and give him feedback very quickly. So
one more question, yeah.
Yeah, so we form an LLC to purchase the property. We do not form an LLC together. So my husband and I have our own LLC, Willow Investment Group, and that's what we signed on the loan as a part of, I think it was Clearwater Manor Apartments LLC. So we do create an LLC to purchase the building in, but if some of our general partners had their own LLCs, they were signing on the loan with their LLC.
It's basically what happens generally is that general partners are the managing members of the LLC, and the limited investors are sort of limited members of the LLC. And what that means is the decision making remains with the general partners, and the investors just get to investors get the shares equivalent to their proportionate shares equivalent to their money that they have put in. Does that make sense? I think. Because the question is, those so general partners form an LLC together. So LLC is formed together with both general partners and limited partners together. But the general partners will be the managing members, the people who have authority to actually act and do something.
Yeah.
Savannah, how did you find a local property manager?
So that one we found on LoopNet. We were just looking on LoopNet to find different OMs or financials so we could start underwriting deals and looking at different things. And so we went on LoopNet and found this deal, and then saw, oh, nope, that was broker. I'm thinking broker. You said property manager. So property manager, I usually always vet out initially through Bigger Pockets. I'll go on Bigger Pockets and look at property management companies in a specific area because they have really good reviews on there. And I think it's such a good hub for like real estate professionals. And then I'll look on Yelp or Google as well. And then really just interviewing them over and over. So a bunch of different phone calls, asking them very specific questions of how many years experience do they have? How many units do they manage in the area? Kind of like what they're seeing in terms of vacancy, what they're seeing, like, are they going to be able to raise rents? Like for this building, because there was a lot of value add that needs to be overseen. Like we're getting a new roof, all the new plumbing and toilets. Like there's a lot of oversight in terms of different management that needs to be taken place in this property. So we asked the property manager, hey, do you have experience overseeing a roof replacement? Do you have experience with dealing with contractors? Do you have your own contracting team that you work with? What are you seeing with evictions right now because of COVID? It's like a huge interview process, and asking them the difficult questions is, I mean, it can kind of feel like you're interrogating them at one point, but it's super important that you have a good property management team because they're going to be the ones that are overseeing your property and rolling out your business strategy over, like, for example, 5 years. And my husband, Lupe, he does asset management, and he's having like probably multiple times a week calls with these property managers. Like we went out to lunch today and he was on the phone with our property manager for like 30 minutes, going over like these toilet things. So it's just a constant like give and take relationship. So it's important that you're working with the right people.
I have a question. You said earlier that the previous seller didn't want to hand over the financials and the due diligence documents until they sold,
Not due diligence. Due diligence documents were handed over much earlier. It's basically you have to hand over the last. Essentially, you have to hand over the leases, all the leases, and make sure that we can contact them and like start changing the sort of bank account information and all that stuff, right? So that's the part that wasn't handed over.
Gotcha. So for the leases, I'm curious, did the credit union require, so I know a lot of them have, very strict requirements for the type of documentation you need to give. So how'd you get around not being able to give them leases, or was that not a problem?
So we give them the rent roll and the T12 for like 3 or 4 years. And so they're able to see kind of all the financials and a rolling 12. So they're looking really heavily at those. We did get estoppel certificates. That's something that we work with to get, and estoppel certificates are basically a certificate that the tenant signs saying, hey, when you sign this lease, you agreed to pay $800 a month for a year lease or a month-to-month lease. And it's just kind of a verification tool. And initially when we started working with brokers and said that we wanted to do this estoppel certificate that we heard on a podcast or something like that, and we told our broker that we wanted to do it, he did give us a little bit of pushback of like, this is going to be a lot of extra work. Like people aren't, the seller might not really like that you're asking for this, but we were very set on like, no, we're going to need this information, especially during a global pandemic. Like we want to have everything verified that these people have these lease agreements. So although we weren't seeing the actual leases, we got the estoppel certificates, and those are something that we hand over to our lender as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any more questions? I think if there are no more questions, one thing I'll encourage everyone to do is to put their contact information on the chat, so that people can network, people can talk to each other, people can contact them later on. And then there's a way to save all this contact information too. So there's a button in the chat on the rightmost right down side. There are like the button has like 3 dots, and if you click on that, it will have an option called Save Chat, and that'll allow you to sort of save the chat. Yeah, I think we should do that. And
hello, sorry.
I think
sorry.
Yeah, go.
I've got one question.
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, but so I recently am getting interested in this. If you would recommend like a first timer, how much money would you recommend to have saved up in order for like a first time deal? And what would you like recommend for like a first timer to get their feet wet before maybe jumping into eventually like 24 room properties in the future?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say about, depending on the size of the deal and what you want to do, I mean, you can really get super creative on how you work these deals. My husband and I just always put up all the risk capital for these deals. So that's an earnest money deposit, a good faith deposit with the credit union. We're putting up the money for the inspectors and contractors, the travel to the property. So for us, it's been about like 30,000 for each of our deals that we're putting up in terms of risk capital. But if you have a pool of investors, or you have a relationship with someone who's willing to put up the risk capital, then you, through the syndication model, you can really get into these deals with zero money down. But it does hold a lot of weight with investors for them to know that you have skin in the game as an operator, as a general partner on these deals. So that's kind of how we continue to build credibility with our investor base, is that we're investing in the deal and we're putting up all the money for the risk capital. But you can get creative about how you do that. And in terms of kind of how to start educating yourselves, I mean, For me, it was podcasts, like podcast everything. There's so many amazing multifamily podcasts. I have a bunch of them on my website that I've been on, the networthnurse.com/podcast. There's tons of multifamily operators and syndicators who dive specifically into multifamily deals, and listening to those stories, story after story, you get a lot of insight into what it takes to take down these deals, and different hiccups that happen or roadblocks that come up. So it's a really good resource. And then also kind of just tells you what to expect. So that, and then also some books. There's really good multifamily books. Financial Freedom Through Real Estate Investing by Michael Blank. That's a huge one that I love. Crushing It in Apartment Buildings by Brian Murray. Really just getting a solid education first is really key to allow you to start taking steps.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, actually for me also, there was books were very important. And another thing you could do is you could enroll yourself to some of the mentoring coaching programs, or there are even networks where you can enroll to. So Michael Blank has one of those such network, and they offer you coaching and mentoring, and it's a little bit expensive, but that's an option for you if you're willing to put that much money in it. So there are many programs that you can enroll yourself as well. And there are networks also where you can pay a little money and then enroll yourself in a network so that you can network with more people. There's bigger pockets, obviously.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I just put a post on the chat that has like the top 3 books that I recommend, which is Financial Freedom and Real Estate Investing is one of the book. Then there's all the Multifamily Millions from David Lindahl, and then Best Ever Apartment Syndication book from Joe Fairless. Those are the books that I recommend.
Cool. Thank you again.
Any more questions? All right, if there's no more questions, then thank you very much, Savannah. This was great. I think I am again saying that Savannah and Lupe are like amazing people, really amazing people. They're very easy to work with, and not just that, but they also stand by their word. So if they tell you that I'll do something, then you can be assured that they'll do that. So I'm very happy to be general partner in their deal, and I'm pretty sure they're going to have keep closing deals after deals. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Cool. And
I
Savannah, I want to talk about your healthcare related meetup.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, I love connecting with other people. So if you're remotely interested, definitely reach out to me. I love chatting, especially if you guys are in LA, that's even better. I feel like with COVID, I haven't got to do a lot of meetups with people, and I'm looking to kind of do some of those in the near future. I also, if there's any healthcare professionals on the call, I'm doing a meetup. I'm launching it tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's online through Zoom. It's a meetup specifically for healthcare professionals in real estate, and not to be super exclusive, but I just really want to build a community specifically with other healthcare professionals, kind of share a common ground of that, and then also with real estate. And you can find information for that on my website and all my social medias right now. If you go over there, it has the links for registration. Cool. So Linda, yes, I see the RN next to your name. You'll have to come and join.
All right. If anybody wants to save the chat, this is the time, because I guess I'm going to close the meeting in 1 minute. So if you want to just go to the down right side and just click on the 3 dots, and then you'll get an option of save chat. That way you can have all this contact information of people, and you can start contacting them and start networking. All right. I'm just trying to check messages. Okay, that's perfect. Again, thank you very much for attending the meetup. And Linda, I hope you would join Savannah's meetup tomorrow. All right. But Savannah, where can they get more information about your meetup?
Yeah, so it's on my website, thenetworthnurse.com. And if you go into any of my social medias like LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook, I'm under the Networth Nurse on all those handles. I'm putting a bunch of information about how to register and sign up. So yeah, you can find me there.
Perfect. And my website is oldmoneycapital.com, oldmoneycapital.com. So if anybody wants to talk to me, my information is in chat as well. So perfect. All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.